they're yelling at him and they're yelling about the project I had done. And I had messed up counting probably $2 million of claims in a bankruptcy case. But the other challenge is some clients demand that you use AI. We have other clients who say you can't use that at all.
Yeah.
In every interaction we have, we either give life or we drain it.
Welcome back to the Leadership Puzzle, where we identify the unique characteristics of today's leaders and help you put the pieces together. I'm your host, Jeff Lupinacci. Today, we are joined by one of my favorite people and a very special guest, Tim Lupinacci. Yes, my brother, chairman and CEO of Baker Donaldson, one of the largest law firms in the nation. Tim's leadership journey spans over 3 decades. And he recently released his first book, Everybody Leads, which challenges the way we think about influence and leadership. We'll talk about his vision for empowering others, what it means to be deep into a 10-year strategic plan, and the lessons he's learned along the way. Whether you lead a team of 2 or 2,000, this conversation will give you some practical insights, inspiration for your own leadership path, and some really true insights into what it means to lead in today's environment. So let's dive in. Tim, welcome back to the Leadership Puzzle.
Well, Jeff, I'm honored to be here, and of course, it's always great to hang out with you. And it's interesting because I don't have to worry about the host not knowing how to pronounce my last name when we talk, right? So we should have it together, right? But no, I'm honored to be here and glad to help in any way I can with your listeners, and also just following your footsteps of coming out with a book because you've got a couple under your belt, and I know another one in the works. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, I can't believe it's been 2 years since you were on the Leadership Puzzle, and you were just starting to dabble with a book. You had built a curriculum for your nonprofit, Everybody Leads,
Right.
which became the foundation for the book.
Yeah, that's right. It's as you know, it's a labor of love and it's a long journey and a lot of ups and downs, a lot of starts and setbacks. But yeah, it was great to launch the book last month into the world and get to hopefully again help others along their journey and their leadership journey with some real. What I tried to do is really practical steps from things I've learned along my journey.
Well, it's a big idea. Everybody leads, and that leadership isn't tied to a title.
Right.
What sparked you to write that, and why now? I mean, because I know you've wanted to write a book for forever.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, when I went to law school back in the late 80s, early 90s, I came out, I was thinking I'm going to be the next John Grisham or Scott Turow and write the legal fiction. So I've always enjoyed writing for sure. Well, I mean, the spark of the idea really did start 3 decades ago, and I was a young lawyer, and I didn't, as you know, we didn't have any like lawyers in our family to look up to. I kind of had stumbled to law school because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And now I'm working for a big firm, and I had made a huge mistake on a big project for a boss. And I had viewed my role as very transactional. I think sometimes we get in that mindset of I got to get these projects done, turn them in, go on to the next project, click the clock and get done and go home and then forget about it. And I did that, and it turned into this big project that was a huge mistake. And I got called to my boss's office, and he was a pretty big yeller. I know many of your colleagues that you're listening will recognize that kind of boss who was pretty aggravated, didn't give a lot of feedback, and he did not want to get paged to his office. But I went in, he's yelling on a speakerphone to a bunch of people. They're yelling at him, and they're yelling about the project I had done. And I had messed up counting probably $2 million of claims in a bankruptcy case, but it overcounted, and it was really, really going to mess up a big hearing the next day. So my boss turns to me and says, "This idiot's going to stay here all night to fix this." So first of all, I don't think that's great leadership there. But two things in my mind immediately clicked. One is I've got a long night ahead of me, and two, I'm going to get fired because I just thought I'm going to do what I
Yeah.
can do, and then I'm going to be fired. Well, I got the thing fixed. I figured out what I'd done, emailed it out, and the next day I had drawn the short straw to drive my boss to the hearing. So I pick him up, and there's a lot of awkward silence. But then he did apologize. He said, "I shouldn't have yelled at you in front of other lawyers." But he said, "The reason I did that, I was so aggravated and angry with you because you have such great potential. You really can own your career and be successful and really be a leader in the profession. But you have to step up and you can't rely on others to fix your issues. You have to own every project, own every client, own every thing you do." And that really was the first time I remembered someone speaking leadership into me. And it set me on this lifelong journey of, well, if I'm a leader, as you said earlier, I didn't have a title, I didn't have authority to do, to buy paper clips for the firm. I had no power, no big, corner office. But if I'm a leader, how does that show up every day? And that led me
Yeah.
on this journey of trying to figure it out and then figure out how does that work out in my day-to-day practice. So,
No, that's it's so interesting. It brings me back to when I was in fourth grade. We had moved back from Mexico, and we're living in southern New Jersey, one of our many moves. And I was struggling integrating back in, to the U.S. after 4 years in Mexico, and someone did something, and I got irritated, and I went out and I thought, oh, I'll teach them, and I let the air out of one of their bike tires. And
oh,
this was a time when all the kids rode their bikes to school and whatnot. And one of the teachers, Mr. Platt, I still remember his name, pulled me in and he said, uh, Jeff, I see so much more leadership in you. You're better than
huh.
this. And so while it took me decades to really understand what he was talking about, similar kind of aha. It's like, oh wow, one person can speak leadership into you as an individual.
Well, and isn't that amazing? Because it's what, 35 years ago or more, and yet you remember his name, you remember the circumstance, and that's something I've challenged myself with every day. Because as leaders, and again, the idea everyone's a leader, we have such huge influence by how we show up and the words we speak, right?
Mm.
There's all kinds of stories, even some in the book, about individuals who like somebody just really spoke a sentence into them that, hey, I think you could be a lawyer, and now they're general counsel of a big company where they never even thought about law school just by that sentence. And I love that he's passed away now, but it was a Catholic priest in New Orleans, Brendan Manning. He wrote about this idea that in every interaction we have, we either give life or we drain it. And then so the challenge is as a leader, what are we doing? Are we draining the person, or are we feeding their soul? Are we encouraging them? Are we seeing those things in others and then pointing it out that, hey, you can really be a great leader? Because you can't undersize how much influence that has, as exampled by Mr. Platt speaking into you, or my
Yeah.
boss Bob 35 years ago.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I think that's something that our generation could be and should be doing much more intentional to
Yeah.
Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and speaking those words that are pulling the best out of them versus, oh, they're lazy, or they just want to get to the top without doing the work. I had to work my butt off to get where I am, and they just think they can hand it to him. But instead, what Bob or Mr. Platt did to you or I, imagine what leaders today could do for that generation.
Well, and again, I'm not an expert in the in the various generations, but I've read a lot about it. And of course, one of the things it seems like that these younger generations want is they want to feel like they're a part of something bigger. They want to see the
Yeah.
purpose, and so that's a lot of what we talk about here about connecting the dots of the day to day, what can be a grind, but to the greater purpose. And in some instances, like our clients are changing the world by the work that we're doing to help them get there, or the work we're doing enables us to then give back in the community and trying to tell those stories of purpose. It's the same thing like the stories of gratitude or the stories of I see something in you that you can really help us drive forward that can add that purpose into a person that really helps your team or your organization drive forward. So I totally agree with you. That's a great insight.
Yeah, no, that's good. Now, was there any stories as you were writing the book, any lessons or stories that were especially personal to you and difficult for you to uh, actually get on paper, but you felt were really critical for leaders to hear?
Yeah, one of the things that really I think stepped on my own toes when I was working on this was that there's a chapter in there about how part about how as leaders we do have a leadership aroma, and I'm not talking about like you've just done a 5 mile run and you don't maybe smell so great. I'm talking about how we show up every day, and it kind of goes
Yeah.
along with what we were just talking about how we can speak into others as we go through our day, and it's really built on a London School of Economics professor who talked about he's from Calcutta, India. And he talked about how the only time he got off from teaching was in the summer, so he would go back to home to Calcutta to see his family. And I've never been to India. I think maybe you have, but as I
Yeah.
understand it, India in the summer is like miserable, 100 plus degree temperature, 100% humidity, kind of like the Southeast in the United States
Yeah.
anyway. But so I kind of know the feeling a little bit that you're just lethargic. You don't want to be outside. You want to be in the air conditioner lying around. You just have no energy. And then he compared that to, he got to teach one spring in southern France, I think, around Fontainebleau Forest, which, as I understand, it's this beautiful forest in the spring. The flowers are blooming. There's a cool breeze through the breeze of the trees, and you just feel like you could run and have all this energy, and you get creativity flowing through you. And so the challenge is, how do you show up for your people? Do you show up like Calcutta in the summer or Fontainebleau Forest in the spring? And why that
Yeah.
impacted me so much is because because we're so spread out as a firm, we do a lot to try to walk the halls, and I can get in a very check the box kind of mindset,
Yeah.
where I'm just walking down the hall and, seeing somebody, and I've got all these ideas in my head, and I may have a scowl on my face, and I'm running to the bathroom or get a cup of water. Or I can walk around and really see how can I help my colleagues get better? What are some obstacles I can remove from their pathway? And that's more this, and then that drives energy in the whole organization as they see somebody who really cares about them and really wants to help them thrive. And so that's something that really was personal because I really had to kind of rethink. Yeah, I can check the box and say, yeah, I did, over a course of a year, I visited all our offices, but did I fully engage with the people in the office and really show up like Fontainebleau Forest in the spring and give them energy by how I showed up? So that's
Yeah.
something I think, and I think that's something we can all think about because people are watching us as leaders, how we show
Right.
up, how we interact, how we deal with setbacks, and then they take their cues from us. So that was something that really meant a lot to me as I was writing that and thinking through it.
Yeah, no, well, and you live that too. I remember when you first stepped into CEO role, you went and visited every site, and you're finishing up another road show. You love
Yeah.
music, so I know you're tying it to that grand tour of maybe Grateful Dead or
Yeah.
Rolling Stones. Well, maybe not Grateful Dead, but Rolling Stones. Um, uh, how do you find that energizes you to get out on the road, just meeting people? Maybe you get to meet them once a year, see them once a year.
Yeah, now that we're up to 24 offices, it really is. I mean, part of our culture has been forever to be in every office and try the leadership and probably be there multiple times a year. And it's gotten harder as we've grown. But yeah, when I was in transition to become CEO, I knew a lot of people at the firm, but I certainly didn't know everyone. And so I thought it was important to go around and say, hey, who is this guy that's going to be the new CEO? And sit down with them and do it over meals because I think that just helps, let people bring their hair down a little bit and get more open. And we as an organization had really plateaued at that point in a lot of number, not just financially, but engagement of our colleagues and marketplace perception. So some of that was literally to sit down and say, what can we do better? First of all, I'm Tim. Here's a little bit about me, my thoughts, but how can we do better?
Right.
And literally just listen and take notes. And then a couple of years later, because we are very intentional to try to get to every office during the year, and whether myself or our COO do that, but when we do it together, that adds an extra added a bunch of energy, and we don't get to do it all the time because it's a huge undertaking. But we did coming out of COVID when we couldn't be together for about 18 months. We
Right.
went on. We actually did do a Grateful Dead themed "Grateful for You" tour with a T-shirt that had kind of a Grateful Dead
How
logo, but it
funny.
was about being grateful for you, and we had all the cities on the back like a concert tour. So we did that in 2022. But as we're coming into this year, we do feedback surveys every spring, and one of the things that came up a lot in the feedback surveys was about how people love our culture and how we really walk the walk, but that there was a concern as we continue to grow, can we maintain the culture, and can everyone succeed in, we're in the middle of our Baker Vision strategy. Can everyone succeed in Baker Vision, even if we're in a smaller office or a smaller market? Because we're pretty dispersed all over different types of markets. And so we really wanted to say, yes, you can succeed. Here are some steps how you can do it. We're going to help resource you, but also to just get the sense of our culture really does matter, and everybody has to own their impact on how they can keep this culture great. And so we did do like the old traditional, you do the summer road trip, get in the station wagon. We used to have one, growing up, and go drive and do some fun thing. This is our summer road trip with a t-shirt. We do t-shirts with everything, and with like a VW bus on it and this dates on the back. And
Love
so it's
it.
been really rewarding because, like I said, when our COO and I show up, then there's a lot of energy. We do town halls. We do a social event. I've had way too much ice cream and that tends to be the social event on a lot of places, but no, it's been great. It's been great to see everybody, and it is energizing to be around people and to see how we can help them, and accomplish their purpose, accomplish their ambitions, and walk in the halls and hearing from everybody.
No, I think that is so important that many CEOs don't really take advantage of, and the fact that you're taking your time and your COO's time to actually go and do that, to strengthen the culture and to engage the employee base, it's powerful. It's
Yeah.
super powerful.
It is. It means a lot, and yeah, it's a lot of work because that means we get to, we're driving to the next city at night to start the next morning, and we're getting to the hotel room, and then we're having to get work done, and certainly we couldn't do it without the team. The rest of the team is kind of
Yeah.
stepping in. We had our management team gets together virtually every couple months, and I start out this meeting last week just thanking everyone because we know we're not as available, so you're having to step up and lead even more, and they're doing it. So it really does. It's everyone working together, but it's for the good of the organization, and it's invaluable despite all the travel delays and stuff, which can, it's building patience. I'm learning. I'm getting better at patience.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of air miles, so hopefully you're at the top of the heap of the airlines. But so a couple years ago, I think in 2022, you referenced Baker Vision. You set a 5 or 6 year vision out there. You're a couple years into it, and what keeps you? What's the key to keeping you energized and making sure that it is relevant, given that the environment around us changes like daily?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, it's been very rewarding to see our colleagues really buy into it, and I'd say it really started before we launched it. Was what is the vision, right? And we got feedback from our colleagues, but also most importantly from our customers, our clients. That's really what we're here to do. And I know many of your listeners. I mean, you're here to serve your clients, and what we were hearing from our clients that differentiated professionals in the legal industry that they really relied on were lawyers who really took the time to know their business, to know their industry, and to help bring proactive strategic solutions to them, that they may not even be thinking about. So
Yeah.
certainly we need to be here if they're sued or they've got a big deal and we're reactive. We get the call. Yes, we're glad to help you. But what really differentiates in our industry, and I bet it's the same in other industries, is individuals who know them so well that they hear about a new law or a new executive order or a new something regulation coming down the pike, and hey, I think this might impact you, good or bad. Are you thinking about it, and how can we help, and navigate it? And so really we landed on this idea, and there's nothing new in this because I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, so I don't come up with new ideas, but we said what that really means, if you're doing those things that clients want that differentiate you, you're a trusted advisor. It's that
Yeah.
old David Maister thing in the trust equation. And so our vision that we launched in 2022 was to be trusted advisors to each client, knowing their businesses, doing exceptional client service, with proactive strategic help so they can accomplish their goals. So that, to some extent, is not impacted by the things we can't control, like the economy, like
Tariffs.
politics, all that stuff, tariffs. I mean, yeah, I mean, our clients are going to be impacted by it, but then we need to be those trusted advisors to help them navigate it. So that helps in the with all of that. It's also was important. That's a very inclusive vision, so that some of our colleagues are never going to talk to an external client, not because we don't want them to. They just their
Yeah.
job doesn't do that. But we talk a lot at Baker Donaldson about internal clients, so we can build trusted relationships internally too, and then we have to do all the skill building and training for everyone, lawyers and the business services and staff, to get better at it. So that's kind of how we launched a vision that was built on the client once, and then to watch our colleagues buy into how does that work in practice and do it and collaborate. And we talk about sales as an act of service instead of just sales and all of that. And and we have metrics about it. But as we've done it, we've seen some people really buy into it and expand their books of business. So then it's important, I think, to tell the stories of Baker Vision, the stories of success of people who have done it well. And then we can talk about this too. We try to we're now really the way we did it mid-year, so we're kind of in year 4 now of the vision. We come up with annual themes to kind of re-energize, refresh
Uh,
things we need to do better within the bigger framework, and I can talk some more about that. But that's kind of some of the ways that we're executing it day in and day out over a period of time, because it is a long period of time.
well, and there's something that you hit on there that I want to pull out, and it's the storytelling
Yeah,
aspect, which I think also goes into your culture. The stories that you're telling
yeah.
should be the ones, and I imagine they're the ones that are reinforcing the culture that's going to help you drive to the vision.
Exactly. Yeah, right. And on this town hall we're doing, our summer road trip, part of our presentation does have a place where we're asking individuals in those offices who we've had the local leaders help us identify who are thriving, succeeding, living out the culture. And we have them share their stories of success, their stories of Baker Vision for the whole audience. So it's not just Tim and Jennifer saying this works. It's their colleagues saying it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, storytelling is so crucial. We've even, when we have retreats, we've even hired like a storytelling coach to help our colleagues even make it a compelling story, because I mean, we tend to, there's an art to telling a story that really is effective. And so because it's just so important to tell those stories.
Well, and I think it's one of those things again that most leaders don't don't spend time thinking about how to tell that story that's going to capture the imagination and the hearts of their employees.
Oh, and there's so many great resources out there. I mean, Donald Miller has a book, Story Brand. I think it's now
Yeah.
Story Brand 2.0. A lot of it's all based on that whole, what is it, Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey that we're all on, and how do we make the customer being the hero of the story, right, and
Yeah.
help them thrive and succeed. And so, yeah, there's a lot of resource. I think you're right. I think we don't value that enough in all we're doing, even as we go to market. I mean, telling the story of how we are going to help them accomplish their goals and their ambitions. And so we're not selling ourselves, we're selling them ways that we're going to help them accomplish their goals, and they're the hero in that. So, yeah, I think that's really important.
That's great. So you said you're like 4 years into this, and
Yeah.
certainly you're a little bit longer into your role as CEO. What if you think back on whether it's the Baker Vision 2028 or maybe a little bit longer you stepped into the role. What didn't you anticipate when you set this strategy and you had to maybe adapt a little bit
Along the
to
way.
adjust along the way. What
Yeah.
learning did you take from that?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to learn every day and get better every day. So, I mean, it's really, but certainly one of the things, like I said, we had plateaued. When I came into the role, we had really plateaued on a lot of things. And so I spent a lot of the first couple of years really talking about this idea of we need to think like a best run business. Because I think law firms sometimes had historically not done that. And so things like that you're very familiar with and you talk about a lot in your book, but about, what is the accountability we have to each other? What are the expectations we have of each other? What's the return on investment of our resource, allocation, and how do we grow together and how do we collaborate together? Things that just, how do we deal with what I call, best run business hygiene? We get our time entered in our industry. We get bills out. We follow up on collections, things that I think sometimes in our profession weren't really focused on, and so that was working, and we seemed to be making some momentum, and then COVID hit, right? And so you talk about like that, just throw everything out the
Yeah.
door and try to figure out what's the next right step to take today because we don't know what tomorrow holds. But still, then, after you deal with the initial, few weeks of now everyone's home, what does that mean? Do clients still going to need us? Yes. Are they still going to be able to pay us? Ultimately, yes. I think most professional services organizations did, had record years in COVID because you're not spending as much on
Yeah.
expenses, and now you have
Yeah.
more need for your counsel. Um, but then when you come back to the heart of it, best run business principles work. I mean, even
Yeah.
no matter what the setting. So we kind of, so that was when we had to pivot. And then, yeah, we had to we had to modify it some, and what does that look like for a remote workforce and everything. So that's certainly there. On Baker Vision, one of the things we started getting some momentum, but as you're never going to get probably 100% of people bought in to what you're doing, even though it's going to help them and it's for what the clients want. And so I think some of the challenge after like the first, you get the kickoff, everyone's excited about it, and people are starting to do some things, but then it kind of settles into the routine. And some of it is telling the stories of the folks who are really getting it and their books of business are growing and they're doing better financially, being rewarded. Some of it is how do we get each individual to own their own impact on this?
Yeah.
So it's not just somebody else is going to do Baker Vision. I've got to own it. And so that's actually our theme this year. And what we're really focused our whole roadshow on this summer is what are some ways that you can own your impact, those daily practices that can help compound over time to help you individually, to help your team, to help the firm. And then since I love acronyms, the impact is an acronym of things we're really trying to encourage our folks to do every day. So anyway, that's just some ways we try to keep it fresh, but you always have to be pivoting and learning and seeing where you go from here. So,
Well, I imagine, even in the pivots, like an old analogy is a sailboat. You have to tick and tack
yeah,
and to catch the wind, but you're still going to the same destination.
right, right. Well, and what's that thing about airplane? I mean, if you with the airplane flying from LA to New York, I mean, you have to keep making adjustments because of the wind and because of the obviously
Yeah.
navigate, and you have to keep, you still head in the same direction. We still have our North Star. We have our values of our culture. We have what we're trying to do to serve our clients as trusted advisors and serve each other internally as trusted advisors. Yeah, we need to make some changes. We need to make some adjustments. We've adjusted some of our compensation process over the course of Baker Vision to better reward some of those behaviors that we know will drive client satisfaction. So that's something that, yeah, that's a clear example of we still have our North Star. We are who we are. We're heading where we're heading, but we got to make some adjustments along the way.
Yeah. And I think it's important for leaders to be uh, humble enough to recognize that maybe they don't have all the answers, and it's okay if they were wrong 2 years ago, and to make those adjustments.
No, and we may have talked about this too because we do it every year. We do engagement surveys in the spring, and a lot of it's built around questions where you can strongly agree or strongly disagree in the numerical thing, and that all matters and that helps, and we can see how we're progressing on that. But there's a spot under all the questions where you can enter in comments, criticisms, suggestions to get better. And there were literally like this past spring, we had like 1,700 plus individual entries of people writing
Wow.
comments. And
Wow.
some of them were encouragement, and one person said that the COO and I should be fired. I'll post. They didn't really say why, so it's hard to say, well, what can we do better on that, right?
Yeah.
But the rest of them, I mean, there was some buckets of feedback that was really helpful. One is communication, and we feel like it's funny because if you ask, oh, we communicate all the time, we over communicate because we're very transparent and we do send everything out. But it was clear from the feedback that we weren't being efficient and we weren't getting the message through as clear as we thought, right?
Yeah.
So that causes Tim to say, okay, well, how can I get my messaging to be more clear, to be more succinct. I tend to be verbose in my emails because I'm trying to let them know everything, and it's like, no, we just need like
You're a lawyer. What do you expect,
that's
right?
right. That's right. You pay by the word. So no, but it's
That's
like,
right.
what are the bullet points up front, and then detail at the bottom if you want it, right? So that's a way I've got to get better at that. The culture I mentioned that really led to the tour was the fact of let's maintain our culture, and then the other was around compensation, was about understanding better how we're getting rewarded for Baker Vision, and that led to some town halls and some other things. So the feedback is so important, not just to get it, but then to react on it and
Yeah.
build a plan about it so people know
Yeah.
their voice matters. But yeah, so I have to get better all the time because the world just keeps changing and how people even want communication changes.
Hey everyone, Jeff here with a quick note from the team at Evolve HR Solutions. If you've been tuning in to the Leadership Puzzle, you know that we're all about finding the right fit for your team. But here's the thing, beyond just talking about leadership, we actually find those leaders for you. So if you're looking for top-notch talent that aligns to your culture and can truly drive the business forward, we're here for that because we specialize in executive search that is so much more than filling a role. We focus on finding that perfect piece of your puzzle, the one that intersects your unique culture with the core capabilities of top talent. So if you're thinking about your next operations, HR, or commercial hire, we need to chat. So visit us at evolvehrs.com. That's evolvehrs.com, and let's ensure you have the right leaders in place. All right, let's get back to the episode. Well, I hadn't really thought about that, but you mentioned the world's changing and whatnot. AI, right? I mean, it's taking different industries by storm, and even on a personal level, I love my Chat GPT. It helps me edit some things. But what about in the legal profession? Are you guys seeing AI and language models and bots and agents coming into play now?
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing in I think every industry. There are all kinds of tools and software and things out there to help us be more efficient in delivering that trusted advisor relationship, to be in that trusted advisor relationship. One of the challenges we have in our industry, and I know others do as well, is we could have a partner that goes to a conference and they come back with this is the latest shiniest tool that's going to
Yeah.
help us better serve our clients, and it only costs $2 million. And oh, by the way, it probably doesn't protect the attorney-client privilege documents that get sent out into the World Wide Web, right? And so there's all these levels of, we have ethical obligations to our clients. So
Yeah.
we were fortunate that we have somebody who's really been working in, AI has been around for a while. It's just kind of
Yeah.
in different formats.
Yeah.
And our we call it our client solutions group, but really our chief innovation officer, he's been at the forefront of this for a while. So we've been very cautious. Like Chat GPT, the early versions wouldn't protect documents as much as we
Yeah.
wanted. So like we use Copilot inside the firm. But the other challenge is some clients say demand that you use AI, for their work to help be more efficient. We have other clients who say you can't use that at all.
Yeah.
And so we have individuals based on their client guidelines. So we're trying to navigate all that. The way we've approached it is that David, who's the head of our client solutions group, and our chief IT officer, they're preparing what we're calling our digital ambition, our digital strategy for the future.
Nice.
And then that's going to help be that roadmap of what tools we're going to use. But we are effectively using, there's all kinds of tools specific to the legal industry, like Harvey, like Spellbook, maybe for other industries as well, but we're using them. But again, they're highly vetted to make sure they protect our
Yeah.
clients' documents, and help us be more efficient in some of the basic tasks, so that then we can really come alongside with our expertise to help them to really drive their strategy forward. So yeah, it's evolving. Every day is different. We have a board meeting in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a big topic of discussion about what is this digital ambition and where are we and how are we executing on it.
Well, and that's one of the things that I see a lot is it's not replacing people, but
Right.
it is really helping employees be more efficient and spend the time on the things that are value added to the company or the clients, not the transactional.
Right.
And but there's a whole lot of things around that. It's like when you or I were coming up, we spent our time doing some of that transactional work, really learning how to do things. And if you've got AI tools now, how do you really make sure
How do you
that
train?
you're training the next generation of whoever if they don't have that same training ground? So that's a big thing we've got to think about.
Oh, and we are thinking about it. I don't have the answers, but like it is because like the law is a very apprentice model. You do a lot of the in the grind work by your learning, and you're sitting learning from mentors, and
Yeah.
which also has some impact when it's a little bit more of a remote workforce. Although we're mostly back in the office. I mean, we have some flexibility, but how do you do that apprentice model and training when you're right. You could have bots doing, and you should have, computer technology helping you do things more efficiently on, as you said, the routine kind of thing. So, yeah, we're working on that ourselves.
Okay, I didn't plan on getting into that, but
No, it's
it's a relevant topic that I think is
every
we
company deals with it, is dealing
yeah.
with it, should be dealing with it. You can't put your
Yeah.
head in the sand about it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I wanna pivot a little bit to your own personal strategy and whatnot. I know you had initially created a 10-year leadership strategy, I think back in 2010, and now you're calling it 10 plus 5,
Yeah.
now that it's 15 years. But looking back, what's the biggest takeaway from that whole experience of, trying to have your own personal leadership strategy?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really started out just doing it annually. I mean, no different than what a lot of people do with New Year's resolutions. Although, what is it, January, whatever, 17th or 19th is National Quitters Day because it's the
Yeah.
day that like they can actually tell on gym memberships when people stop going after their New Year's resolution. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
New Year's resolutions that I did that would fail. And then I learned, well, you need to not just do the resolution, you need to have the goals, but you need to have a plan behind it. And what is your system, your scorecard to make sure you're being intentional about it. So I was playing around with that, doing that. And then as we were coming up to, 2010, some leader out there, some resource said, well, not just plan your best year ever, plan your best decade ever. And so I went through that process, and it was pretty interesting about just saying, what are some things you want to accomplish when you get 10 years from now. And it was interesting to go back and look at it because one of them was, and at the time I was leading the Birmingham office of our firm. So I was in some firm leadership, but I had this vision to become the COO of the firm, and which is odd because now that I know what the COO does, I would be horrible as a COO. I mean,
Right.
she's so amazing in what she does and her talent. But I had no idea that, about this vision of a CEO. But it certainly what that did was, okay, well, if you're interested in being COO, how do you continue to expand your leadership opportunities within the firm? And so that did lead to me leading some practice group in the department. So
Yeah.
I guess that kind of helped that plan.
Yeah.
That plan 2010 was to finally get a book written. And I did have some annual goals on number of words, and it was fits and starts, and it really didn't start with a vengeance really until after that 10 years, but at least got me thinking about it and dreaming. That's the biggest thing it did to me is like
Mm.
dream forward. So that really did help. And ultimately that culminated in 2019. I became the CEO with all those different things I was trying to get better at. But yeah, so I had a couple of years ago, I had somebody's become a really close friend say, well, what's Tim plus 5 years? What's Tim plus 10 years? Which is a little bit the same thing, but I'm in the middle of being the CEO, and by 5 years I'll probably be early 60s, and what do I want to do? And I don't want to. I was very clear. I'm about 6.5 years into this role, 6 years, and I was clear. I thought 10 years would be a good time frame if everything was going well. That you probably want fresh ideas. The next,
Yep.
so do I in my early 60s? Do I want to go back and rebuild my practice? I don't know. I love practicing law. I love bankruptcy. I love helping fix things. But do I want to do that? So it really led to this. I said, well, maybe I want to do some leadership in nonprofits. And that's when he said, well, why don't you start a nonprofit? And that's what you mentioned. I started Everybody Leads and try to take some basic leadership skills and training to underserved communities when I can. And so it's really just has helped me fuel. Okay, well, I want to finish this book. Look for opportunities to just share the words out into groups as I have opportunities. And so it really does help just to take that reflective time and think about what are your big goals and ambitions, and then how can you get there? What's the
Yeah.
plan? So I think that's important for every leader, but it doesn't have to be that ambitious as a decade or 5 years because I mean we don't even know what next quarter is going to hold. But even, I've done mid-year resolutions before. I love the first day of every month is a new month that you can say, what am I going to do for the next month? What are some things I want to do? I've started journaling at night about saying, what were 3 wins from today? What were the three
Ah,
best things that happened today? What are the 3 things I can learn and do better from today? And then what are 3 wins I want to have tomorrow? And I'm not saying like you name it and all of a sudden it happens, but just that framing of it helps break it down to a particular day can be a real successful day. With all the whirlwind going on, like one of my wins for today, when I was thinking about it last night, is I wanted to show up and be very engaged and hopefully add value to your listeners, right?
yeah.
I may have all these other, challenges pop up today, but if this is an engaging call and I'm helping in some way, then that's a win, and that's a win
Yeah.
for today. So anyway, I mean, I think you have to break it down to what works for you.
I think the idea of just, not forgetting to dream is
Yeah.
so important. I feel like so many people have forgotten how to dream as life has just happened to them and challenges has happened to them. I obviously deal with a lot of individuals who are in transition, and it's a hard time in their careers, and sometimes there's no dream left in them. It's just, how do I pay the bills or get the get that next interview, and it's the whole spectrum, whether it's
Yeah.
health or family or whatever, and folks forget to dream. But I think you hit on a topic that is so important, that especially as leaders, that we can dream for ourselves, because then we can bring that into the team in a different way.
Well, I mean, two quick things. I mean, on that, first of all, I want everyone to, who's listening, like really know that we need you. We need your leadership. We need your ideas. We need your passion. I know you've had setbacks, but the world needs folks to step up and really lead well. And
Yeah.
as you know, as your book talks about, like the talent advantages, each of us individually showing up and really can impact others. So I would just encourage you, no matter where you are, that we really need you to step up and keep moving forward. The other thing, I've read a little bit about this in the book, but I don't know if you remember this movie. It was really not a great movie, but I just watched it a lot back in the 70s, the Gumball Rally. Did you ever see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
It's this cross-country road race, and from New York to California. And actually, it was based on, there was a true, like, I think it was
Yeah.
the sea to shining sea, race across the country. And I think the record time's 36 hours. But anyway, in the movie, it's kind of a silly movie, but they pair up in teams and they're at the starting line. And one of the drivers was played by Raul Julia, and he was an Italian driver, I think Bertolini or something like that. And he gets in the car with his new partner and he says, "My friend, the first rule of Italian driving." And then he reaches up and tears off the rearview mirror and throws it out of the car window. He says, "What is behind me doesn't matter, only what is ahead." And I use that, how much do we, like you said, you have setbacks, you have health issues, you have, tragedies, you've been let go, or, you're transitioned. We have to learn from the past. But maybe I actually keep an Amazon rearview mirror in my office as a reminder that I need to rip that rearview mirror. I can't let those voices in my head say you can't do this because of how you messed up. You shouldn't be leading this. You continue to make all these mistakes. I want to learn from it, but I got to rip that rearview mirror off and throw it in the trash can and drive forward. And as you said, like the windshield is the dream. Like what can you do? You can do amazing things, and it's out there. Certainly, we learn from the past. That's part of our journey, who we are. But let's lead forward. And dream. So yeah, I totally agree with you that we need to dream a little bit more.
No, I love it. Well, Tim, we're unfortunately out of time for this episode. Now your website, everybodyleads.org.
Right. That's the nonprofit and talks about my book on there. That's right. Yeah. And I'm at
and
bakerdonaldson.com.
so they can find you on LinkedIn, bakerdonaldson.com. You can get his best-selling book, Everybody Leads, on Amazon and everywhere that books are sold, I imagine.
Almost everywhere. But no, Amazon is probably the best place to get it. And again, there's a link in the everybodyleads.org. You can get it straight from the publisher too.
All right. Well, Tim, thank you for joining us again, and hopefully it won't be 2 years till you come back again. But really appreciate the time with us today.
Well, it's been a real joy, Jeff, and I just am so grateful for what you're doing in indenting the universe and helping so many people along their journey. Keep up the great work, and I just really appreciate you.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, hey, that's it for today's episode of the Leadership Puzzle. Super big thanks to Tim for joining me and sharing not only his vision about Baker Donaldson, but some deeply personal approach to his long-term leadership. If there's one thing I'm taking away from this conversation, is that leadership is a daily choice, and it doesn't require a title, as we know from his book, but it does require some intentionality. And you got some great tips today. If you've enjoyed our conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast so you can never miss an episode. And if you want to find out more about leadership insights and other resources, you can find it at evolvehrs.com. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep solving your leadership puzzle.